We are talking about the breaking news item that came out. Look, we all anticipated, as Will did, that maybe it wasn't going to be much of a thing when the Epstein files, if they will be released. What was it going to look like? What was it going to be? It felt a little maybe too good to be true, if you will, in a typical kind of government way. And look, I think we got to be fair here and say Pam Bondi went on Jesse Watters, hyped it up a little bit. The next day, all these influencers were given binders that had the first phase one.
Yeah.
And really what was inside of it and the details that got released were things that had been released for years. Most people had seen versions of this, digitized versions of a lot of the content that was there, maybe some specifics here and there, heavily redacted images. And then, of course, you have what became a very interesting moment, which is maybe the first infighting we've seen publicly between departments in the Trump administration. So you have Pam Bondi sending a pretty spirited email, or not email, but letter to Kash Patel, the FBI director, saying, this is not all that's there. You guys are keeping stuff from us. I have a source that's telling me on the inside that this is happening. This doesn't necessarily put a lot of trust right now into what a lot of people feel, because people felt like, again, if you're going to say promises given, promises kept kind of thing, this isn't that moment. But she's saying, hey, it's not on me. It is actually on the FBI. It's not necessarily even on Kash Patel, because these requests came in before. It is, it feels a little Washington that this would happen. That you wouldn't, of course, get the information you're looking for. I said it feels a little James Comey-ish in the sense of like, I'm going to promise you something, then I'm going to kind of come in with a little bit of a curveball. Never expect Washington to not be Washington.
That's right. And what we have here in this letter from Attorney General Bondi to Director Patel is that before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was the full set of documents responsive to my request, and I was repeatedly assured by the FBI we had received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, this is last night, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When I spoke to you yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. And what do we have here? I think a little bit of an unforced media error by the Attorney General's office, where after finding that out, should have put out a statement and said, here's what I've learned. Basically what is laid out in the letter, and said, I know I promised this last night, but I would prefer to actually get all of the documents and then release it. Instead of still doing the rollout plan of what at the time they were told was everything. But regardless of that, the implications here, this is why do people care about Jeffrey Epstein in this story? It's salacious. It made a lot of headlines, but at the core of it, it's an individual who is running an egregious human trafficking ring. And potentially high-profile politicians, celebrities, wealthy billionaires could all be implicated in some way. And for years, we've been protected. They've been protected. No one other than Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were indicted. Ghislaine Maxwell serving 20 years in prison. Jeffrey Epstein died before his trial in jail. And so everyone has the question, because as Attorney General Bondi said, there's more than 200 victims. And when you have more than 200 victims, it begs the question of where are the others that have committed crimes, and why has no one been held accountable? That's why people care about this. It's not just about the gossip and the salaciousness of the names involved, but getting to the core of something very corrupt happening in this country. And elites getting away with it because of who they are. So when there are people in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York and the FBI field office in New York that are obstructing what the Attorney General, their boss, is asking, saying, give me everything. And they say, we have. But in reality, they were covering up by withholding everything she asked for. That's a very serious problem. That is the definition of deep state actors trying to subvert what their bosses are telling them to do. That can't happen. That can't rise to the level of rebuilding trust in our institutions. If people are deciding that they're going to do whatever they think is best instead of taking the directives from the Attorney General of the United States, a confirmed by the Senate, nominated by the elected president, Attorney General, and they're going to decide to go it alone, that can't happen.
Yeah, I also think, I'm looking at the comments right now, unlike the other side of the aisle, which I feel like will always try to coalesce in certain things. So it's like, hey, today we're anti-Israel. All right, we're all anti-Israel. Like, that feels like how it works. With my friends that are even liberal, they all take on the same causes at the same time, and they all make excuses for everything. I'm looking at the comments right now. I was on X earlier. People are not making excuses for this. The MAGA crowd, if you will, is not happy about this, and it's not what they feel like they voted for. What's going to happen is you're going to have your most loyal people who are really believing in you start the process of going, this is the exact same as any other Washington, D.C. situation. Did I expect a bombshell to drop out of these documents? No, I didn't. Truthfully, I know a little bit too much of how Washington, D.C. always works. And who knows what's even in these documents and what's exists. Maybe I'll be wrong. But what I wasn't expecting was this odd public display, of let's do almost a press moment of we're doing this. And then you have the Attorney General writing a letter to the very newly appointed FBI Director, Kash Patel, almost inserting a rivalry in the public eye that may or may not be real, in the sense of it feels very Washington. And I'm looking at the comments, and people who feel that way. I mean, there's a lot of people commenting, trust has been broken, we were played. I see that over and over again. Now, that has always been a problem in Washington, D.C. It's always been a problem in politics when you make these big swooping promises and then you can't actually live up to it. Because you know what? There may be things that are in these classified documents that people don't want getting out there. There may be things in classified documents that don't need to be out there. We have to be okay with that too, of knowing that there are national secrets sometimes for a reason. I don't think that's necessarily the right thing, and I don't know what it could be in this one, but maybe there is a point to all of this, but don't make the promise.
Well, and once again, and to be fair, what the reporting is a little bit also on the influencers that received it, was it looked as though it was a stage setup photo op moment. It was not, apparently. They were there for a pre-scheduled meeting about new media because they've been a part of the White House press briefings and things of that. So they were there for that, and Pam Bondi was at the White House with these folders and handed them out. And then, unfortunately for the way it rolled out, when they were leaving, press is there, just started taking photos and they lifted it up. It wasn't meant to be a photo op per se, but it came across, it also came across like it was,
though,
like,
hey, we're going to go live in 30 minutes and start reading this.
It looked as though it was made a celebratory moment. And I think that takes away from the gravity of what people want is accountability. It's not just knowing the names, it's knowing why has no one else been prosecuted. There is no fathomable way that more than 200 victims and the only two that have criminal charges against them were Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And that's where the situation gets dicey, I think, for the Attorney General and Kash Patel, too. It's not just if they release things. People want accountability. They want these things to see people punished for what are egregious crimes. And so even if they just release more documents, and maybe they show that other people, or maybe they don't, because maybe the FBI was never investigating that. So maybe documentation doesn't exist about other potential perpetrators. But I think that could also be a moment where people are like, we don't trust the FBI. You released everything and you still didn't do anything.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Seculo program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.